evening at 7 o'clock. I'm going to call us to order and invite everyone to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Moved to approve the agenda.
I heard a motion and a second. Second. All right, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approval of consent agenda. This includes two items: approval of the February 6th, 2024 Board of Education meeting minutes and approval of the Caring for Classroom teacher donations to Valley View in the amount of $3,620. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Meg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stacy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Audience of citizens. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board either in person or online this evening?
I'm the only one online, so.
Oh, all right. Then we'll move along. Portland Public Schools Spotlight. This evening we are delighted to welcome Principal Mike Searson to introduce the Kid Governor program at Brownstone Intermediate School.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And thank you once again for allowing us an opportunity to highlight something unique about Brownstone. So this topic is important because the last couple that we chose for a spotlight had to do more with extracurricular activities at Brownstone and how they impacted school climate and culture. This one has to do a little bit more with individual student work, specifically pertaining to a portion of the 5th grade social studies curriculum. And we chose this topic because, as you will see momentarily, it was fascinating for us to watch our students become so inspired and passionate when faced with simple questions such as, what's important to you? Where do you see a need for change? And how can you help with that change? And for me, specifically, this is fortunately my second year where I've been able to see the finished product of this process known as Kid Governor. But obviously it is the teachers and, more importantly, the students who are in the thick of this, putting in the hard work to see this through from beginning to end. So thankfully, we are joined by our two 5th grade social studies teachers in Allie Furlong and Elizabeth Bayo, who are going to come up and talk a little bit more about what this looks like before handing it off to the star of the show tonight, Roman Christensen. He is one of our current 5th graders, where he's going to share the platform upon which he ran for Kid Governor. So I'm going to hand it off again. Thank you again.
Why don't you join us at the podium so everybody can hear
Never
you?
done this before.
We want anyone tuning in online to be able to hear you as well.
So we have, we do have a slideshow coming up, so that's kind of coming up there. But as Mr. Searson Mike said, I'm Elizabeth Bayo. I'm one of the 5th grade teachers at Brownstone. I teach science and social studies, along with...
I'm Allie Furlong. I teach social studies, and I also teach ELA on the other team.
So we have the pleasure of teaching the Kid Governor program every year in 5th grade. So that is what we're spotlighting tonight for you. So, go to the next. All right, so we start the year with this program, and it's a good kind of way to get the kids into our social studies curriculum, and it also aligns nicely not only with all the other 5th graders in the state that are doing the program, but also with election day. So it ends up culminating right around that time, so it matches up really nicely. It's broken up basically into 4 parts. So the first part is an introduction to the branches of government. So we go through that with the students. We give them an overview, and they get to learn about how the actual government works before they kind of take action on it, into it on their own. So
And then we move into political platforms. We talk a lot about, we give examples of political platforms and community issues, and then we ask the students, just like Mike had mentioned, to think about something that's really important to them in their community and what they hope to change. And then we sort of move into the next section.
So the next part of it is taking that community issue and then researching it. So this is a great carryover for what we do for the rest of the year in social studies. We do a lot of research projects, so this is kind of their first peek at that. So they get to develop 3 research questions, and they use resources along with our Brownstone Library Media Specialist, helps us out a lot with this, gathering resources and researching their topic. And then they come up with 3 points that they use in their speech writing to share their topic and to say how they're going to fix it and how they're going to help it. So then they develop their speeches, they do that writing piece, and they move on to the next step.
So we finally go into a class-wide vote. So we sort of explain this to students as the primary election, 2 primary elections. One is class-wide, and then one is grade-wide. The class-wide election, we ask students, they don't need to present their speeches, but we encourage it. So anybody is allowed to present their speech, and they come up, they give their speech. There's 5 fifth-grade classes, so we end up with 5 candidates. And we move into a grade-wide election. It's a really awesome day at Brownstone. We have everybody come down to the auditorium. The 5 candidates, they're very excited. They present their speeches. We invite parents and families. Other teachers from the school come. So it's an awesome day, and they share their speech. We then have the rest of the grade vote for their candidate, and we talk a lot about voting in this and really stress the point of this is your vote for not just a friend or somebody you know, but what community issues stood out to you and what do you kind of resonate with. So it's a really great opportunity to have that conversation with kids. They then vote, and the finalist makes a video, a campaign video that we then send to the state, where other towns that have participated, they also send in their candidates' videos, and we do a final vote right around election day.
Yep.
And that culminates our unit.
Yeah, that's kind of how the unit works. That's like the rundown of what we go through. But some highlights of it, it really does relate very nicely to the actual voting process and the actual election process. It gives them kind of that real life experience on more of that kind of student level. But I just feel like it's a really memorable experience. And then
yeah, it's definitely project-based and something that kids are individually kind of inspired to do. So we look forward to it. The whole school looks forward to it. There's a lot of confidence that comes out in kids that don't often come to speak. This was my 3rd year doing it, and I've seen a lot of kids you wouldn't expect come forward and want to give their speech. So that's a really special part of it, I would say.
Yeah. So it's like that memorable experience they all kind of walk away with. So then next we actually, before Roman comes up, we have a video from one of our past kid governors. This student is actually in 6th grade now, but we wanted to share with you his campaign video, and then Roman is actually going to come up. He's our current 5th grade kid governor at Brownstone, and he's going to actually read you his campaign speech. So this was Easton, and his platform was on animal cruelty. So this is the campaign video that he created.
Animal cruelty. I'm smart, confident, and creative. I want to be your kid governor. 390,000 dogs are put down in kill shelters a year. I want to stop that. Factory farming is one of the main factors of animal abuse and suffering. Animals are converted into machines that make meat, milk, and eggs. Farm animals are murdered constantly for meat. Raise your hand if you love bunnies. Raise your hand if you think they're soft and cute. More than 50 million animals are tested in science experiments a year, and most of them are bunnies. Here is my 3-point plan that I will complete as your kid governor. First, I will start a fundraiser to raise money to help animals in shelters. Another part of my plan is to convince people to buy meat from free-range farms. I will put up posters in our community to spread the word about support shelter adoption and the rescue of animals in local shelters. So vote for me and I will try my absolute best to help animals. We can save millions of animals from death and testing. I have 2 dogs of my own at home whose names are Hardy and Wolfie. When Hardy was a puppy, he was dumped in the woods with his brother and was sent to a shelter when he was found. My dog Wolfie, when he was a puppy, was at 6 homes in 6 months before he got to my family. And that must have been so scary for them. But we can help animals. Help me save the animals that I know you love. Vote for me and I will try my absolute best to stop animal cruelty. Thank you for listening.
So that was Easton's video, and now we have Roman, who I said was our current 5th grade Brownstone Kid Governor. He's going to talk about mental health awareness.
Hello, my name is Roman, and I'm here today to present you my speech for Kid
Hey,
Governor.
Roman, sorry to interrupt you, sweetheart. Can we point the mic right at your mouth so we can hear every
Hello.
word you're saying? Maybe Mr. Searson can help that.
Try
I
that.
don't think it's on.
We good?
And if you stand right near the microphone, we'll be able to hear you, kiddo.
Hello, my name is Roman, and I'm here today to share you my speech for Kid Governor. Hello, my name is Roman. I was born here, in Portland, Connecticut. I have 2 sisters and a mom. I also have 3 cats and 2 dogs. In my free time, I like to play soccer, watch TV, and play video games. I want to be Kid Governor so I can change mental illness awareness in our state. My dad died because of severe mental illness, and I do not want that to happen to anyone else. I want people to know that they are not alone. I will be a great Kid Governor because I am kind, empathetic, and hardworking. I'm kind because I help people when they are hurt. I am empathetic because the way people feel and the things they experience matter to me, and I am hardworking because I always put forth my best effort on the soccer field, in school, and in my relationships. If I was Kid Governor, I would work hard for you all. Mental illness leads to severe changes in behavior, thinking, and/or emotion. Examples are delusions, trouble understanding others, inability to cope with daily problems, stress, distress with social life, and family activities. Mental illness can also be known as anxiety, sadness, or stress. These are all different ways to define mental illness. 19% of adults suffer from mental illness. This means that about 1.5 billion people worldwide suffer from mental illness. 4% of adults suffer from severe mental illness, which means 300 million people in the world suffer from severe mental illness. The population of Connecticut is about 3.6 million people. This means that almost 700,000 Connecticut residents struggle with mental illness of some kind. When I'm Kid Governor, I will publish a website about mental illness. It will teach you what it looks like, how to get yourself or someone else help, and a message board so people can share their own experience with mental illness. To do this, I will interview experts in our states, like social workers and psychologists, to get their advice on things that we can do to help others. You can help me with this by emailing these people with me to set up interviews. For this website, I also have a way for people to donate money or volunteer their time to comfort others. I will also need to set up a special bank account for this. You can help me by donating money, or doing fundraisers and handing out flyers. I want to sponsor a 5K or fun run. You can run, walk, and have your friends and family sponsor you to help raise money for mental health awareness here in Connecticut. Mental illness is a cause that is near and dear to my heart. I hope that you will want to help too. Please vote for me for Kid Governor so I can raise awareness for mental health here in Connecticut. Thank you.
So I think that was a pretty poignant example of where this process can take you and the passion that kids can find at a young age of 10 years old and the courage that they need to kind of step out and be bold. So proud of you, buddy. Good job.
Thank you all so much. And Roman, Nice job, Ann. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your words with us.
And when you win, come on back and we'll help you get the bank account.
Yeah. All right. All right, we're going to move on to our student representative report.
In about 3 weeks, the annual Portland High School musical will be taking place. Rehearsals are starting to run longer, and all the cast and crew are putting in amazing effort. Tickets are now on sale for the show dates of March 22nd and the 23rd. Currently, there are a multitude of fundraisers being held. First off, seniors will be holding an Adams Roundup on March 30th. The junior class will be holding a Chipotle fundraiser on May 22nd. The annual sophomore auction will be taking place on the 28th of March. This fundraiser in particular is always very successful, but mainly in part of all the effort and hard work that the class advisors put into it. The freshman class is hosting a badminton tournament that is happening this Thursday, and students have had the chance to buy tickets at lunches throughout the week. Lastly, DECA is planning their annual egg fundraiser for the upcoming holiday season.
The National Honor Society just hosted their first service project of the year, known as Go Baby Go. NHS student members collaborated with their peers as well as college students and professors to adapt many cars for children who have disabilities. This event was a major success per usual, and all the little kids left with smiles on their faces. As juniors begin to prepare for college, the class of 2025 is attending a college fair on March 21st. Students will be able to meet with different college representatives that will help them explore their future education. Since winter sports have come to a close, spring sports will begin to start up in the coming weeks. Boys tennis will be collaborating with East Hampton this year. The other spring sports include track and field, baseball, softball, and golf. Students cannot wait for the new season to start.
Thank you. Any questions for our student representatives? No? All right. I can't wait to get my Matilda tickets. I hope to see you all there. Communications and updates. Dr. Britton?
All right, thank you. So include a few things in your packet. First, I'm very sorry that I had to include your letter from Stacy. This will be her last board meeting with us. Thank you for everything you've done. It's going to be a huge loss to our board.
Thank you.
And I did have a chance to talk. I completely understand the reasons. I wish you all the best of luck and come on back as quick as you can.
Thank you.
So I believe we'll have a new individual for the board to consider at our next meeting. I don't want to get ahead of that process. I know there are bylaws and things that need to be done, and I think that those things are well underway. But certainly, Stacy, wish you all the best of luck, and somebody has big shoes to fill. Second thing, I did include there's a letter of resignation from Caitlin Tenney, science teacher here at the high school. Thank her for her service with us and wish her all the best of luck in her new career or her new position. I expect that we'll have that position filled pretty quickly. I have an interview set up for this week. So, Caitlin, wish you well and wish you all the best. Did include the latest enrollment report, and I want to thank Tricia. She updated it with additional information. You'll see some new numbers on here for you, and that was at some of your requests. So you had the general look at the overall numbers and then the section sizes, the cumulative summary, so you can see the rolling average throughout the year. But then Dave did ask, so hey, I'm noticing that there was a decline, right? And so we did include not only that, but we hadn't historically included the number of outplacements, because sometimes if you add them up, you see some of the decline in enrollment is a function of outplacements. So we did include that number there, and then also we are including now our open choice enrollment. So thank you for Tricia for putting that additional data on the enrollment report, and we'll keep it going that way so you can sort of see how those change month by month. Is there any additional data you feel like you need in terms of enrollment, or is this helpful for you to have, and do you appreciate those additions?
Yes, absolutely, and thanks for adding the outplacement numbers. I think having those totals there moving forward will be helpful.
I think they will be too.
Keep them front and center in our minds.
100%. We help on a lot of levels. Okay, so I also included what I thought you would be very much interested in is an email from Mike Serrano from Friar Architecture, and in that he linked to, and I included the information that was linked. Stephanie and I have spent some time in looking through this. This is the grant process. This is what we would need to provide the state by June 30th to secure any funding from the state as we move forward with the facility modernization plan. So we're very much aware of that, and Stephanie's already reached out and has to access for the portals and the online information that we need. Now, March 13th, Tricia scheduled a meeting with Laurel, me, Ryan Curley, Mike Serrano, Friar Architecture, Stephanie, and I are going to meet with representatives from the Department of Administrative Services. These are the folks who approve the grants and oversee school construction funding in the state. Our purpose of that meeting is to make sure we're very much still on their radar, and that we're going to review this process for applying for the grant with them, and answer any questions. Certainly, we don't want any surprises. We want to make sure that what we submit to them by June 30th is comprehensive, and that we're right at the top of their list. They have been very much aware of what we've been up to for the past 2 years. We've met with 3 different directors at this point. So this meeting will be, again, another opportunity for us to make sure that relationship with the state is solid and that they are aware of how we're moving forward. So I appreciate Mike and Friar Architect for helping us stay on top of these. They're going to help us write the grant. That's all part of the pre-referendum services that they're providing us. So that March 13th meeting is happening. In addition, Friar has provided me with the blocking diagram of what a pre-K to 5 Valley View would look like. He has asked me to kind of keep that under our hat for right now. He is sharing that with a construction company called Gilbane, and Gilbane is going to come back with the costs of it. So the next piece of information we're going to get, in addition to the blocking diagram, would be how much it would cost. That's a big dollar item, which we know. The costs of that, of course, understanding that if we fill out this grant, we would be asking for about half. I think it's 51%, our reimbursement rate. And they're going to give us not only the blocking diagram, but a 3D model, right? So we'll be able to see the blocking diagram, and then I'm imagining some kind of, hey, you walk in the front door and be able to look around. So that's happening. So we've got the blocking diagram, we're going to have the cost estimates, and then we're going to have this 3D representation to go along with the blocking diagram. In addition to that, I have asked Ryan Wallstrom, and I've asked Ryan because, if you'll remember, Ryan has been working with that facilities committee for the past 2 years and is well aware of focus group feedback and concerns that were brought up, and otherwise, what our priorities are and how schedules would align and pick up and drop off and all of the things that people have concerns or questions about. I have asked Ryan to take that blocking diagram and go with a teacher to visit 4 elementary schools that are pre-K to 5 elementary schools and would be the size of that school. The goal of those visits to sites, and we was just on one today, would be to gather information from those schools and get copies of their schedules, their staffing profiles, and a whole bunch of other information. My hope is that I'm targeting optimistically our first board meeting in April, where I can share with the board the blocking diagram, the 3D model, the costs, and then I can have Ryan share with you data and information he's gathered from schools similar in size and enrollment to the school that we'd be looking at for a kind of a whole scale look at what this pre-K 5 school would look like. My hope, my goal in that is that not only are you going to have, which you already do, the ed specs plan, right? But you'll then be able to see the ed specs plan in a blocking diagram, in a 3D representation, with the dollar amounts, and feedback from Ryan Wallstrom about how schedules would work in lunch waves and PE and specials and all of the things, so that you not only are going to see the ed specs report in a written form, but you're going to get a visual, a cost estimate, and insight into how the school would actually operate. I think that would give you a lot of information and insight that goes way beyond how many square feet and, things that would be in a ed specs plan that are more of the mechanical or technical nature. And I think we can get all that to you, I'm hoping, the April 5th meeting. Are you comfortable with that? And if you are, great, I'm going to keep working on it. And otherwise, what additional information might you need to help inform you about what the ed spec plan consists of? Because at some point in the near future, that's what you're going to need to take action on.
I'm really excited about all of these different pieces of information that we're gathering, and I'm really excited that Ryan's been able and willing to do these site visits, and looking forward to the feedback that he gets from the administrators and the teachers in these schools. I think it's going to help us.
April 5th, it's a Friday. So
Whatever our first
Whatever
April
the first-
meeting is,
first
the first
board.
Tuesday of April.
April,
1st?
yeah.
It would be April 1st.
Okay,
First
yeah.
is a
I
Monday.
mean, I'm sorry, April 2nd.
So certainly I hope that all of those pieces will get us the information that we need to eventually vote on.
Good. Yeah, and I'm hoping to give it to you all in one package as opposed to kind of piecemeal, like
Sure.
put it all together. And I think whether we need a special meeting or just plan to be here, a little longer, regular scheduled meeting, that there will be a lot of information you're going to get.
That was my question about a special meeting. Would the Board of Selectmen be invited, or would the general public be invited? Because it sounds like a lot of information to.
It could be. Maybe let me think about
Think
that
about
that
that.
a little bit.
Because the public, I think, is going to be just as excited as we are if we move forward with this plan.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that this is going to really, give us literally a look at this. And again, I've seen the blocking diagram. I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of questions that a blocking diagram alone would call for. What I'm trying to do is look at the blocking diagram, anticipate those questions, so that when Ryan goes and visits school, like for example, is that cafeteria big enough? We wouldn't be starting lunch waves at 10 in the morning and ending them at 2. So that we can. A lot of the concerns that were brought up about a pre-K-5 school, I think the answers to those concerns or questions can be found in how similar schools like Country School, Marlboro Elementary School, I've forgotten the names of the other ones, but how those schools operate. And then, of course, the big question too is, as Ryan goes to these schools, well, how many PE teachers do you have? How many special ed teachers do you have? Because we know that this consolidation will bring with it some inherent cost savings in terms of overhead and staffing. So I'm hoping that what we can accomplish when we share all of this with you will give you a real deep insight into the ed specs plan, which is the document that is the prerogative of the board, but also start to make people comfortable with should this all go in the direction we're hoping it goes, we're doing some good work.
Charles, just to clarify what you were saying about Ryan's questions that he's asking during site visits, it didn't sound like you're submitting staffing projections for that meeting for consideration, or are you?
It could be. We've already done some staffing analysis that's contained in the facility study report. You can see that there. The reality is, though, when you look at that staffing analysis, it was done with the multiple models in mind, right? That it was done with the 3 school, the 2 school, the 1 school. I think now it's time to do a deeper dive into the 1 school model, right? So I think that if you go on the facility study report and look at those projected savings and staffing profile, they're pretty close to accurate, but I want to fine tune them. And this is, I think, the process we would use to fine tune them.
Okay.
Then one other thing I just want to let you know that I sort of exercised some administrative prerogative and decided to do was I've reached back out to Peter Prouda. If you remember, Peter Prouda did a demographic study for us 3 years ago as part of this process. I've asked him to do another one, take another look at our demographics. There's a cost to it. It's about a $2,000 cost. We're going to use some of our remaining COVID relief funding to pay for it. The reason I think that that's really important is because the model that we're exploring, which is a pre-K-5 elementary school, gives us the least room for enrollment growth, right? I mean, the idea with the pre-K-6 model was that if pre-K ever came on full-time or there was unexpected growth, then the 6th grade could move to the middle school. The pre-K to 5 model gives us less wiggle room there. So I think it's really important for Peter Prouda to take one more look at the demographics and dial in while we're still at a point where we could make adjustments. I will say that one of the exciting things about the blocking diagram is in the blocking diagram, he lays out how the school could be expanded for future growth, which is really important. But we are going to hopefully have that second demographic study together with the report the data that's Ryan's gathering, the 3D model, the cost projections, and the blocking diagram.
And Peter Prouda will be he'll be projecting out a few years further than the initial projection went. And it will also be taking into consideration new information about the apartment complexes that are being built at Brainerd Place.
And factoring in the new kindergarten start age.
And factoring in the new kindergarten start age, right.
Yeah. So it's going to get us from a projection to 2031 to 2034 with all of those new factors in. So I think it's a wise investment during a time when we can still adjust the square footage and consider the reimbursement rates.
And just to clarify, the $2,000 in COVID relief funds that you're talking about using for this enrollment addendum are coming from savings from the funding we had set aside for our fire architecture consultants.
We have 9,900 kind of there still. I think taking 2,000 from that is a really smart way to use that funding, which, by the way, is an acceptable use because the process would lead to improved indoor air quality, which is one of the buckets that you can use that funding for. It was student mental health, learning loss recovery, and improving indoor air quality. So that's how we justified it.
I guess the last question that I'm going to ask, or that I'm thinking of, is the only date right now that we have to focus on is June 30th, when we have to go with all of these plans and the blessing of the board and the Board of Selectmen to the Department of Administrative Services with our plan and our request.
Correct. So the grant application that I included in the board packet, if we the deadline for it is June 30th. But anytime before June 30th, but June 30th is the deadline. We would submit it by June 30th, and then we would learn by December 31st if the grant was secured. You know, our goal of the March 12th meeting with them is to say, we want a wink and a nod that if you fill this out the right way, you're going to get the money, right? Like, I don't want any unpleasant surprises around the holidays next year, right? But yes, if we don't hit the June 30th deadline this year, we would have to wait until June 30th, 2025 to learn by December 31st, 2025 if we got the grant. So it would push the whole process forward.
So before that date, the Board of Education will need to take action on the ed specifications, which we're waiting to make that vote until we have all the information. So I'm anticipating in April we'll be able to take action on that, and then the Board of Selectmen will eventually take action on an amount to send to referendum.
Yeah, and you'll notice that in the application packet, it requires, amongst a lot of other information, the board-approved ed specs plan and a commitment from the Board of Selectmen that this is going to referendum. Right. Technically, we wouldn't be submitting this grant application until after a bonding referendum had been approved. But because it's a federal election year, this is the time when they have the dispensation where you can submit the application packet prior to the referendum.
Yeah, this was helpful. Thank you.
Are there questions for Charles about any of what he just covered? It's a lot.
All right, it's exciting times, so we'll get ready. We're doing our work, and I think by April 2nd board meeting, we will have a big reveal. All right, and then the only other thing I included in your packet, I just wanted you to see that the issues that we're facing here in Portland with respect to decrease in the excess cost and other state level funding is a statewide problem. So I did include this from CAPS. I thought that the chart there was nice. You can see that decline in reimbursement that towns are receiving. It's affecting everyone. Not that makes it any better here in Portland in terms of what Stephanie's going to talk to us about tonight, but it's important that we are all aware of this, and then of course through our advocacy work in the state aware of it, because our deficit in Portland is a direct reflection of what you see right here, and an increase in outputs. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
Stephanie, a report from our assistant to the superintendent for business and financial affairs.
Sorry it took me a little longer to get this to you. I was trying to fine tune a bunch of things, because I know there was some requests for additional information to get added. So I just want to show, this is basically what I usually send, but I downloaded it to Excel, and I added in the column that says projected to end of year. I mean, I'm going to really focus on projected, because that's, these are what I think is what we have left to spend. I mean, salaries, again, I did this on Friday, and things could change tomorrow. So as the point in time, this is what I anticipate is what is left for expenses and projected to end of year. And then you could see the big picture. 1.4 million, 1,408,669.20 is technically the deficit. But then to Dave's point, when he's asking about the revenues, that's where I added in the piece at the bottom with those are the anticipated revenues to help offset that deficit, and that's how I get to the current one that I always usually tell you guys. So right now it's 263,550. I'll round up. So if that's it, I apologize, I was a little cold. So if that what you were looking for, Dave?
Yes, no, that's good.
Okay.
And then revenues are just what we expect to come in the rest of the year, not what we've already maybe gotten.
So you'll see I wrote like Medicaid actual. We've actually received 24,963 Medicaid. So then I put then Medicaid anticipated what is left. So as of right now, excess cost actually just came out on Thursday, but just the first portion of it. So I didn't obviously have a chance to update this. Hartford we haven't gotten, so that's why it's anticipated. The SIG grant benefit, the ones at the bottom, SIG and mental health, those are actuals, and Waterbury anticipated because we still have to bill Waterbury. So wherever it says anticipated is what we're expecting and hope to get. Excess costs will change now because the student services just submitted the March 1st I guess actuals, and there has been changes. There has been changes between the December 1st and the March 1st. So, yes, some outplacements did come back, but that will affect that excess cost. So once the POs get out and we get the real number in my next report, hopefully by April, that should be updated to what the true number is. And then they again in June submit the final, which could be completely different as well, depending on what changes within the year. So they're all anticipated. This is as of today what we're expected to get as far as revenues go.
Stephanie, what constitute the Hartford and Waterbury anticipated? Why are we getting those funds?
Because we have students that come to Portland that are Hartford students, open choice, that receive student services, special ed services.
Okay.
And Waterbury, not sure why they're here, but they come to Portland and they have student services. Okay. So
so those are
student
student
district
services.
they pay. So we cover the tuition portion of it, and they just pay anything additional.
Got it.
That the students that they send here.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any questions about anything I added or about any of the numbers?
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate looking at the projected to end of year column. I think that was a great addition. It helps me visualize, so I appreciate that.
And you'll see under natural gas and under electricity, I'm anticipating I'll have a savings of 30,000 in each, because, they're coming in lower, the solar panels is cheaper. We always try to aim for what it was at the time, and then if there's anything that comes in less, great. If it comes in more, not great. But that's why you'll see where there's some parentheses, that's where I think we'll have some savings.
Yeah. So, and this is nice because it really is kind of highlighting exactly what is causing this deficit for us this year. And it's tuition to private sources, it's tuition to LEAs, it's transportation, it's all the things we've been talking about all along. I was curious too about the classified salaries line, and if you could tell us a little bit about why we're so far over the mark there.
So a majority of those are one-to-one pairs for the Hartford students, and so that's offset with what we get down here. I don't put it in up there because I haven't done any of the journals yet, so that's why I put it down there. But so, technically we're in a hiring freeze, but if there are services that a student needs, then we are authorized to hire, and they do pay for benefits, they pay for the salary and all that. So we charge them to the normal LEA, and then I adjust as we receive the money.
Gotcha.
So that's why that looks higher. And the same thing under the medical insurance. We had a small deficit, but there's also, if you see down here, mental health grant benefits, sick grant benefits, the 2 employees. I just haven't moved the money into the medical benefit line, so that'll eventually go down also.
Okay.
So the deficit isn't as high as 72.
In the medical insurance line.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So as these numbers below get lower, it'll be affected up at the top.
Other questions for Stephanie about any of this?
No, it's a bare bones end of the year, is what it looks like.
Coming to the end.
Running on fumes.
Yeah, but it is worth noting that since the last time we met, the anticipated deficit has come down by close to $100,000, right?
Mm-hmm. And it should come down a little bit more because of some stuff that changed last week. We're still waiting on clearing some stuff up. So.
Okay, good. It's trending in the right direction. And I know that you both are doing everything you can to mitigate this. All right, any other questions? Thank you very much, Stephanie. Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology. Good evening, Eric.
Can I make a quick
Yes,
statement?
please.
Yeah. All right, so I spoke with Eric today. I know we like to encourage Eric to be succinct. There's a couple of things I want to point out on here. Under the new business, right, you're gonna see some new course proposals and a change to the math scope and sequence, and a first read on an educator diversity plan. My suggestion is that why don't we let Eric go a little bit longer? He did include and talk about those things in the report, and engage him in discussion now about any of those courses or that diversity plan. That way, we can have all of our questions answered before we get to new business and don't have to call Eric back up when we get to that new business item. Or we can ask Eric to be quick now and then have him come back up in new business, but it just seems like now would be the time to have him do his report, talk about the new courses which have been reviewed by the curriculum committee, talk about the educator diversity plan, have a back and forth with him now, and then we don't need to, hopefully we can be prepared to take action on the courses, and otherwise the diversity plan is a first read. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. Take it away, Eric.
Yeah, I think slightly longer should really only be slightly longer. So good evening, everyone. I'll start off with the increasing educator diversity plan, which I talked about during my last update. So per state legislation, every district in the state is required to develop and submit to the CSDE a plan to increase educator diversity. The state put together some fine resources to help that process. Those resources were really devoid of strategies and more about the process for developing a plan. We largely followed that process as recommended by the state to create what's being presented to the board for a first read tonight, or was included in my report. The way that plan was developed, the reality is we can have all the great strategies in the world. It's about the pool of candidates available to us. We're not seeing across the state large increases in pre-educator service programs for educators of color or for pre-service candidates of color, which is obviously the first domino in the chain. You have to have people who want the jobs, and then we can worry about how are we recruiting those individuals into our district, making sure that we're hiring and selecting those individuals as to increase diversity within our ranks, and then once those individuals are employed within Portland Public Schools, doing all we can to retain them as highly effective educators within our district. So the plan we developed is very much, with the given that the pool of pre-service educator candidates of color will increase. The state has not really been forthcoming about whatever pressures or initiatives they're placing in universities and pre-service programs to help increase that pool. But we've done our best to develop a plan, again, based on the assumption that that pool will increase. The way we drafted this plan was to focus on actions that were new for our district, so you won't see things in our plan that we're already doing. For example, you won't see things like, make sure that we're posting all openings on popular websites. We already do that. So that the only actions you see in our plan are things we have not yet tried to date. And it's developed in those 3 lanes of, again, of recruitment. How do we get them to the point of application? Filing applications, hiring and selection. How do we get educators of color to the interview table and get them through the interview process and to the point of hire? And then once hired, how do we retain them? Those are the 3 lanes of our plan. The plan was developed through discussions amongst the leadership team. Also, I've been in countless conversations with my colleagues from around the state, including other area districts, and districts whose demographics, makeup, composition mirror those of Portland, because that's a similar challenge that we all face. I took suggestions from their plans and from those conversations to draft ours. I produced a draft of a plan. We roundtabled it at the leadership meeting. The administrative and leadership team gave feedback into that plan. Their feedback worked its way into the draft, and then we repeated that process with representatives from the teachers union. And their feedback made its way into the draft that represents the first read version that you've been presented with tonight. So I don't know how positioned the board is to ask questions about the plan yet. It's a first read. There is the potential for the board to take action on that plan at our next meeting, or to continue the discussion. If the board would like to ask questions of the plan or offer feedback, we can certainly put off the vote to approve that plan beyond next meeting. I had indicated in here that we've been given an extension by the state. The plans were required to be filed with the state by March 15th. Given our board meeting schedule, I applied for an extension. I was granted an extension until April 19th with an invitation to apply for a second extension. If for whatever reason, once the board were to approve a plan, it would then go to the state for the state's review. The state will use a waiver that districts have been provided to review our plan. That rubric also guided the development of our plan. We think it fulfills the requirements of the rubric. If for whatever reason the plan were not approved or not yet filed, there would be a hard deadline of May 15th. So we have a little bit of time to go. This isn't with the intent of rushing the board into action, but if we feel compelled to take action, or if there's no discussion of the plan at the next meeting, we can do so, or we can continue the discussion. And then just important to note, while there's a requirement to have a plan on file with the state has said there will be no one at the state level monitoring these plans, making sure they're enacted or fulfilled. I appreciate the exercise of developing a plan because it's yielded good discussions, good strategy sessions for how this work might happen within districts. There's value in that alone, but there's no hard accountability to this plan from the state. That at least is being advertised to districts at this point.
So Eric, just so you know, this is front and center at the state legislature. This is a conversation that's been going on at the Ed Committee. There's, I think, a couple of bills, and everybody is trying to figure out the best way to increase the pool of likely candidates. One of the things I'd like to recommend, and just if we can encourage, we've got DECA, which encourages kids to pursue business things. Years ago it was Future Teachers of America or whatever, but to go back to, looking to see if there are kids, students here who would pursue a degree in education and have some kind of a club or group that could meet and talk. Because I think growing your own is also, and we certainly do grow our own. We have a lot of students who have gone into education from Portland High School.
Yeah, there's been certainly districts that have made pre-service education pathways part of their career and technical education programs. It's certainly a conversation we can have in Portland. We're not set up well to do that right now. That would involve the development of additional courses, likely allocation of additional funding to develop those courses. But if it helps us to grow our own and to increase educator diversity that way, it's certainly worth discussion. And even just to put more individuals into a career pipeline that's facing dramatic shortage in years to come. And we have had fruitful efforts in the past, like during coming out of COVID when we brought recent graduates back to serve as substitutes within our district. That's another way of growing. So I appreciate those suggestions, Mike. You won't see those in the plan, but again, if the board feels strongly that those are strategic action steps we should include in the plan, I can certainly make that change.
That would be up to the board to decide. Thank you.
I had a question. Can you remind me if, is it the state that is defining diversity specific to racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity, or is that how Portland Public Schools decided to
The state and the legislation is defining it that way. In the guidebook, it's more indicative of racial diversity, but we're sticking to the broader. We believe that diversity looks like a lot of different things, or embodies a lot of different things. But certainly the state statistical measure tends to be along lines of race.
Yeah, and to be in compliance with what the state's requiring, we have to identify increasing diversity racially, ethnically, and linguistically.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But the hard data we're going to come up against and continue to come up against is race. Right in the guidebook it says this has been front and center in the state's discussions for the better part of a decade. In 8 years since this was officially put on the table as an issue, the state has managed to increase educator diversity along lines of race by a little less than 2%. And that's at the state level. So there has not been major strides, and again, tied primarily to the pool of candidates enrolled in our pre-service programs in the state. There's certainly the potential to tap into out-of-state pre-service candidate pools. The difficulty there is we have no financial incentives to bring them to Connecticut. In other parts of the country, districts and states do equip pre-service candidates with financial incentives like tuition forgiveness, housing assistance. Unfortunately, for a lot of different reasons in Connecticut, that model doesn't work or hasn't proven to work. Any other questions on our educator diversity plan? So while next meeting is not mine to present, Dawn will be at the podium, I will be here, and this will be on the agenda again in our next meeting for any feedback, questions, and potentially for the board to take action.
Thank you, Eric.
And I do just want to end by saying, certainly welcome to the board's suggestions, but it is important to note that this met the eye of both the leadership and the teachers union as what was attainable and actionable right now for our district. But again, the board may feel differently or have other ideas.
Can I just request that if board members have specific feedback or changes that they would be looking for, if it's feasible, if you could send an email to Eric, myself, Charles, any of the above, ahead of our next meeting, so that we could maybe have that information to consider ahead of the meeting, since I know you said we could potentially go for another extension, but we are on a bit of a timeline, so if you have thoughts or proposed changes, let's try and get those out by email ahead of the meeting.
That's a great suggestion. And I do apologize for the template. We were required to use that template by the state. It has been a nightmare trying to type things into a spreadsheet. I don't know whose idea that was. If, as soon as the board votes to approve any plan, any iteration of any plan, I will spend the time to convert it to a usable format for the district, because this ain't it. But this is the format the state is requiring us to use for finance.
That single long cell that just keeps going and going makes it very challenging reading.
If you need to see the plan, Control plus and minus is your best bet versus trying to scroll up and down the side. I'm certainly not the only one of our area colleagues that feels the template. All right, I'm going to move us ahead to the action items for tonight. And I'm fortunate to have Principal Lawson in attendance to help answer any questions. I'm asking the board, or we're asking the board rather, to take action on 3 items tonight. One is a 3 course proposals and 1 course adjustment. I do want to note that all of these items were presented to the Board of Ed Curriculum Subcommittee. Just so you know how the subcommittee functions, teachers and Ms. Lawson are the principal related to the initiative, course proposal, new textbook adoption, course adjustment, credit adjustment, brings it before the Board of Ed Curriculum Subcommittee. The subcommittee has a chance to ask questions of the proposal or what's being brought before them, and then ultimately, although they're not a decision-making body, give a recommendation. So the recommendation would be we do not support this proposal at this time. We support this proposal but with reservations, and we ask that you go back to the proposal and do some work around what our reservations are, or we ask that this information be brought to the board for vote, which is really a sign of agreement with what's being proposed by the subcommittee. There's no objections. All of the action items have been recommended by the subcommittee to be brought before the board for action, which is why we're here tonight. So the first proposal is a course adjustment to reduce English 12 from a 1-credit year-long course to a half-credit semester course. This does not in any way reduce the number of English credits that a PHS graduating senior would be responsible for having accrued. It would still be 4 English credits at the rate of 1 credit per year. English 12 right now operates in the program of studies as a full-year, largely literary survey course. Second semester senioritis, senior motivation is a crippling disease. Reducing this year-long course to a half-credit semester offering would allow us to do a couple things. It would allow us to take that first semester of English 12 and focus on the types of college and career writing that our soon-to-be graduating seniors are needing in real time and will need once they enter university or the workforce. So things like cover letter writing, resume writing, college essay or the narrative, informational and research writing. So to divest a little bit from literary analysis and make it a more writing-focused course, there would still be text coverage. They'd be looking at model pieces of writing to guide their own development of writing over that first semester. Because we've reduced English 12 to a half-credit semester course, the second semester would then open up for seniors to take any one of our standing English electives within our program of studies, which tend to be more high-interest, topically driven courses. So second semester, we increase choice via interest for seniors, and we hope that that does more to keep them motivated and keep them on the ball than making them stay in this year-long English 12 course. That's proven a challenge year to year. So that's the first proposal. I'm just going to jump ahead to our first course proposal because it dovetails with this reduction. So the first course proposal would be for the addition of an English elective course, largely to satisfy more choice for our second semester seniors, were we to pass the course adjustment for English 12. This would be a mystery and mayhem course. So it would be a literary analysis course that focused on the genres of mystery and suspense. Where did our English teachers come up with that course? They asked students, what are the types of texts you would like to be reading that you're most interested in? And we had large numbers of students say, we're really interested in reading mystery and suspense, thrillers, novels that are action-packed or focus on the deeds or misdeeds of villains or villainous people. It's a course that any one of our existing ELA teachers could teach, would be interested in teaching, and would be excited to see in our program of studies. So I'm going to pause there. Those are our first 2 items, and again, I presented them together because they kind of go hand in glove, if you will. So one is reduction of English 12 from a year-long course to a half-credit semester-based course. It would still be classified as English 12. And then second semester would open up for elective choice to our seniors. Within that elective choice, they would potentially have one more elective to choose from if the board approves Mystery and Mayhem as a course for development and implementation. Kate, did I miss anything on that?
Only thing I would add is that this proposal is completely teacher generated.
Thank you.
As a concept, as a concept.
And this is not projected to cost the district anything.
Kate just said that the teachers generated these proposals. They can't hear you online.
Okay. Any questions about the reduction of English 12 from a year-long course to a half-credit semester-long course?
That's great.
Any questions about the course proposal for Mystery and Mayhem? Okay, I'm going to move us forward. Our next course proposal is a new PHS, that was a typo in my report as I'm looking at it now, I apologize, history elective, contemporary issues through multimedia. So it's being presented as a new course because the title of the course is changing. This is kind of the phoenix from the ashes of an existing course known as contemporary issues, which is largely focused on the use of print periodicals, newspapers, and magazines to examine current issues in the news for a number of reasons, including the decline of print periodicals. This course needs a little bit of a revamping. Our history department, again, a teacher-led process, came forward and said we'd like to breathe new life into this course, and the more we talked about it, we said this kind of sounds more like a new course. So it's continue to look at contemporary issues, but largely through the lens of multimedia and how those issues play out in the media, and how different media outlets cover a similar contemporary issue differently, how issues of bias may creep into media coverage, or issues of perspective may change based on a media outlet's coverage of a contemporary issue. So we look at this course as being twofold. It would continue to teach our students about contemporary issues, but it would help them to develop critical skills related to media literacy and how to decipher fact from fiction or objective from subjective, and the way that events are portrayed within multimedia news. And that's everything from newspapers, magazines, to online blogs, websites, podcasts, anything of a media nature that's now well beyond the purview of just what's in physical print. This would be, again, a half-credit semester-long offering. It'd be open to all students. Largely 11th and 12th graders tend to take these courses. It would not affect distribution of credits. This would be in addition to required history courses that students must take, and it's not projected to cost the district anything in order to begin implementation of this course. Any questions about contemporary issues through multimedia?
But I'm glad to see you're doing it. Because of the media studies that are required, that meets that requirement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great.
The final proposal was brought forward by our math curriculum specialist, and it's really the development of a course pathway, but it would begin with the development of a singular course. So we have a number of students in our district with significant cognitive challenges in the area of mathematics. These are special education students with specific IEP goals. What our math teachers are finding is that within the Common Core math classroom, which teaches things like modeling and strategic flexibility, these students are falling behind and struggling. And given their cognitive challenges, they need math instruction that's more discrete and more explicit, or that may focus a little bit less on broad conceptual understanding and more on the teaching of one or two discrete strategies for attacking specific math ideas, concepts. So it's taking kind of broad plain mathematics for students, again, with defined cognitive challenges, and making a little bit more discrete and creating a 3-course sequence. Again, this would really only be open to students through an IEP process, or through a PPT process, rather. Enrollment within these courses would become a condition of their IEP, and it would be subject to discussion of their specific cognitive challenges that warrant placement into that course pathway. And the 3-course pathway would effectively be Essentials of Algebra 1, Essentials of Geometry, and Essentials of Algebra 2. To begin, we would look to develop and implement next year Essentials of Algebra 1. We're fortunate to have within our ranks, by the same teacher who brought forward this proposal, an individual who's previously taught this exact level and type of coursework to great effect in a district in which she previously worked, and saw the benefits for her students there and said, this is really something that we need at Portland High School for a very specific population of students. And again, this was supported by Principal Lawson, by myself, and by Mrs. Davis.
Eric, one of the things we talked about in the curriculum committee, we talked a little bit about impact on staffing, and maybe that's something that you would want to address for the full board now.
Yeah, so in running that by with Principal Lawson and Kate, I don't know if you want to come up here and talk about impact on staffing, but with our current allotment of FTE in the area of mathematics, we could cover this. As we expand to potentially 3 courses, we may be looking at an alternate year sequence of courses to make sure that we can staff it, but Algebra 1 and Geometry would not necessarily be developed in a way that one course had to follow the other. So you might have mixed grade level populations and doing an A-B rotation. And then we don't see an Algebra 2 Essentials course coming for, I would say, at least a couple of years. We would offer Algebra 1 and Geometry, see how that pathway plays out with the potential for Algebra 2.
And you'd also mentioned, I think, that because this is student-driven, need-driven, based on IEP needs, that, some years one class might be needed and another class might not be needed.
Absolutely.
And so that there would be a lot of flexibility in determining what was offered based on what students needed.
Yeah, while this serves a defined and consistent population of students at Portland High School, we don't necessarily see the course ever needing multiple sections of one of the courses. And again, to your point, in some years, we may not have enough students whose IEP needs dictate that these sections are run at all. For right now, we do see that being a need year in, year out for at least one section.
Yeah. And we don't anticipate that there will be any impact on math class sizes for other math course offerings.
You're talking in existing sections about a reduction of maybe 1 or 2 students across our Algebra 1 sections, for example, which currently how many Algebra 1 sections do we run? 4. So even if we looked at 1 or 2 out of each, you're talking 5 to 8 students is our ballpark.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Are we talking about kids who have been diagnosed with dyscalculia, where they are not able to process numbers because of their ADHD or what? I mean, I guess we're talking about IEPs.
Yeah, we would be talking about students with exceptionalities that include learning disabilities, that include intellectual disabilities, and may include other health impairments and autism.
Okay.
I think one of the key pieces of the change is that this will be taught by a special education teacher in conjunction with a mathematics teacher, because what it will do is it'll allow it to be, it will contribute to the student's special education hours and their IEP, and it will be specialized instruction to give them access to the curriculum.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
I have concerns about that, and I'm curious how this pathway, to me it seems like we're segregating students with cognitive disabilities, and I am not convinced that this would be the least restrictive environment for these students.
I'm
also curious, like a specific question is, would this be considered mainstream classroom education, or is this considered pull-out?
So in terms of these, the reason that our math teachers have come forward with this concern is that these are students for whom even the greatest differentiation of the Tier 1 curriculum is not proving effective. And that differentiation is really separate instruction from what their peers are receiving. So while they may be seated in a mainstream classroom, the type of instruction they need to be successful is markedly different from what their peers are receiving. It's not a differentiated version of, it's an other than what their peers are receiving. And when we continue to keep students with these types of disabilities in the space of the Tier 1 curriculum, they're not succeeding. They're reaching the point of frustration given the demands of that curriculum.
Yeah, I would concur with that. Currently at Portland High School, there's 2 options for mathematics for students. There is a life skills mathematics course within our life skills program that is predominantly consumer and practical math, often offered around the elementary level. And then for our students, there's Algebra 2, Algebra 1, Geometry. There's a lot of real estate between those two pieces of the curriculum.
what we have found, and we've done a fair amount of state bashing tonight, but I will continue, is that the state requires us to sit all these kids in front of an SAT, regardless. All but our very most 1% cognitively disabled students have to sit in front of an SAT, and I've always believed that exposing them to the curriculum was the right thing to do within the regular education mainstream class. What we are finding and what we are seeing are deficits that are creating issues for students to feel less than because they are not comfortable in the regular classroom. They are not gaining what we wanted them to gain out of it and showing any success on the standardized tests, and they're leaving feeling demoralized, and they're feeling like they don't understand what's going on, especially as you hit into geometry and algebra 2, because it's all theoretical. It's all application, and it is very few. The plug and play formulas are pretty much obsolete, and it is really for students to use those higher order abstract thinking skills that some students they don't possess. Not that we don't always want to develop them, and the beauty of having a math teacher and a special ed teacher is that they can do that together, and they can individualize it. So it is really creating another option for kids that would be less restrictive than the life skills math class, but more restrictive than the mainstream.
So on an IEP, is this going to be considered instructional time with peers?
No, it will be considered special education service hours.
Okay.
Absolutely, and that would be an IEP decision.
Right. Okay.
And again, as subject to an IEP, it would be subject to an annual review. So while this is, being proposed as a pathway, it's not a 3-year commitment. Obviously, it would be annually reviewed, and if a student was showing skill development or growth towards being able to go back into the Tier 1 classroom, we would certainly hope that, and we would place them there without delay. And again, as I said, I'm fortunate to have Principal Lawson here tonight, so thank you. Any additional questions on the Pathways course proposal? Just a couple other items. I did put into my report information about a grant opportunity that we've been extended by the state, which is called a State Personnel Development Grant. This grant targets the area of mathematics. We were not offered this chance to participate because we're deficient in any defined area or have been placed, on a list. It actually turned out to be a little bit of good fortune. I happened to be at a meeting. A close colleague of mine who has previously worked as an assistant superintendent is now working in the state grant office for special projects. Ran into her. I said, "Hey, what are you working on?" She said, "Oh, I'm actually working on this grant, and we're looking for partner districts." I said, "Tell me more." So it's a state grant that targets mathematics in grades 1 through 6. And the goals of the grant are to ensure evidence-based math practices are being utilized regardless of instructional setting, to strengthen the qualities of IEPs as they're written, specifically in the area of mathematics, in order to ensure that mathematics goals within IEPs are strong and measurable. That effort involves increasing collaboration between special education and general education teachers in the writing of those goals, to strengthen progress monitoring practices in and around IEP goals for mathematics, and to increase the capacity of educators to communicate progress monitoring growth to families. Dr. Britton, myself, Principal Searson, and Principal Wallstrom met with the grant contacts from the state. They provided us a slideshow, the link of which I included in my report. We look at this as a phenomenal opportunity to partner with the state. The state is interested in Portland not only because of my connection to one of the grant project coordinators, but also Portland has established itself as a good partner district for the state to work with, and that's largely been through our actualization of the school improvement grant. The state has said to us, "You have been model partners." And although we obtained that grant because we did end up on a list, nonetheless, we've earned a reputation of this is a kind of district worth extending grant opportunities to. So I'm proud of that, and I think that speaks to the work that Gildersleeve has done within that grant. That being said, We did land on that list for the school improvement because of needs in the area of mathematics, and our state assessment data continues to bear out the fact that we have needs in the areas of mathematics. So we have an opportunity to partner with the Department of Education to strengthen math instruction for all learners, with specific emphasis on special education learners as mathematics goals manifest in their IEPs. It would not cost the district anything. Not only would it not cost us anything, we stand to take in roughly $32,000 for participation in this grant. That would help to offset costs associated with participating teachers who may need to miss class time for participation in this grant study. Just to quantify class time, the grant project manager said we don't estimate it being more than a half a day per month for any teacher participating in the grant. So you're looking at a total of 5 school days throughout the year, but only at the rate of a half day per month. In addition, these teachers would receive top-tier professional learning, and the district's intent was, this is a 5-year federal grant that the state was awarded. We would be part of a first cohort of 5 districts to participate in the grant. They've planned for a second cohort and a third cohort with the intent to bring the efforts, the fruits that this grant work bears to scale across the state. Brought to scale across the state, I can almost assure you will not be attendant with any grant money, and that's kind of the privilege we earn if we choose to participate as a first cohort. So, principals, Dr. Britt and myself, we look at this as an opportunity too good to pass up, but we wanted to present it to the board. There's certainly funding on the line that the district will receive and the board will need to approve. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the grant.
One of the things that we talked about in curriculum was I think Kim and I had both expressed a little bit of concern about pulling teachers out of classrooms and that kind of getting out of hand over the course of a year. And so it's nice to hear the updated figure that they're not anticipating it's more than a half a day a month. Is there a way that you all would be monitoring that to make sure that it's not becoming more than that?
Yeah, so when I asked that, and I apologize, this information was also brought before the Board of Ed Curriculum Subcommittee, and they asked a couple questions, and that was one of them. So thank you, Laurel. Thank you, Kim and Stacy. So when I asked that question, we're still building out the specifics of the grant. We don't anticipate it being more than a half day per month. Does that seem reasonable, was the question asked to me. And I said, that seems reasonable. What if in developing the grant it turns out to be more than that? And she said, participating districts will always have the opportunity to say no, or that doesn't work for us. And they'll work specifically with districts to see how might we utilize existing professional development time such that teachers aren't missing classes. So it becomes, we're not signing up for something sight unseen. It becomes customizable to the needs and to the structures present throughout participating districts. And in our meeting, one of the grant contacts said, listen, as we've gone to enroll districts across the state, it's only confirmed what we already know. No 2 districts are the same. Right? How they choose to participate, what the realities of their participation looks like. So we know that as we're enlisting 5 districts in the first cohort, we need to make it work for those districts, and we'll need to do the same for the second cohort and the third cohort, and even with efforts to bring this to scale across the state.
Yeah. Thanks. I had another question around when we spoke about this at curriculum last week or the week before. We were talking about how many staff members would be involved in this, and that there was teacher stipends that went along with this for our teachers to participate, that it would be completely voluntary for students to participate. And you said that you really, knowing our staff, anticipated folks being really excited about this. And I guess I'm curious if there's been any exploration with our teachers yet around what the interest levels are.
Yeah, so our first step for participation was we had to identify 2 coaches, because for those 2 individuals, and by coaches I don't mean existing coaches in the district, we don't have FTE coaches, but one person currently working in the area of intervention and one person currently working in the area of special education were the request of the grant. The reason we had to tab them first is because the grant for those 2 individuals, the grant work starts this June with a week-long institute. After that, we don't do any work with this grant until the beginning of next year. We found those 2 individuals. I reached out to 2 people. Those 2 people said, yes, sign me up. So I didn't have to go beyond the 2 people that we initially thought would be interested. We've really focused thought to focus our efforts with this grant on grades 3 through 6. in grades 3 through 6, we're allowed to offer through participation in the grant inclusion of up to 10 teachers, 2 special education teachers, and 8 regular education math classroom teachers. As it turns out, across grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, we have exactly 8 regular education math classroom teachers in the district. So we're hopeful that all 8 will say yes. If we get less than 8 saying yes, we can go forward with 6 or 4. It's up to 10 teachers, given that composition. If 8 regular education classroom teachers did not say yes, we'd have options to say, well, let's expand it to additional grades. Perhaps K1 and 2, they would still be, 1 and 2, they would still qualify for participation in the grant. Or to change the mix of our teachers such that we include additional special education teachers. Again, up to 10. I did ask the question, at what point would we not have enough participation? And they said we'd like to see a minimum of 4 teachers. So as long as we could get 4. So to answer your question a little bit more directly, we haven't taken that step yet of reaching out to teachers, but we will be doing that once we sign the participation agreement. We're confident we'll get at least 4.
Great. Do folks have other questions about this grant opportunity? Eric, remind me, do you require the board to take action on this before you sign any kind of agreement with them?
We don't. So the participation agreement, we're not asking the board to take action on our participating in the grant. We provided it for your information. Of course, if the board strenuously objected to our participation, we would hear those concerns. But this isn't for action. Our intent is to participate. At the time we receive the lump sum funding payment for participation in the grant, the board would have to take action to approve those funds being taken in by the district.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and finally, I do want to address within the board report issues of cybersecurity that have arisen in the district. There were concerns shared by a parent. Dr. Britton and I had a substantive meeting with that parent. Principal Lawson and I also followed up with that parent. I thought had an equally productive meeting. The reality is we are constantly strengthening our cybersecurity and internet monitoring practices in the district, particularly in the area of artificial intelligence. It's multiplying so quickly that even our industry-leading internet software cybersecurity vendors are struggling to keep up with the proliferation of artificial intelligence as it's exploding across the web. They're constantly updating our filters, or their filters rather. We maintain very open lines of communication for them when we find our students are accessing things they should not be, either through our own discovery, through our filtering processes, or through reports from parents. They've made substantive additions to their filters over the past month, especially as we've made them aware of things happening on the ground level here. That is a very open line of communication. We remain confident in our cybersecurity practices in the way we're filtering internet for our students, allowing them to access certain things, not allowing them to access many things. We provide a strong acceptable use policy that we feel we're able to enforce both proactively and reactively with students. And we really believe strongly in the charge of preparing our students to be good digital citizens. That is both proactive work, helping them understand choices they should or shouldn't be making on the internet, and then ready to respond when they make mistakes or access things they shouldn't be. Inclusive of that is encouraging our students to self-report, either instances where they're stumbling upon something they shouldn't be, intentionally or otherwise, or know their peers to be. And so we maintain open lines of communication with our students that way. And we feel that those practices in combination are helping us to make sure that our students are accessing the internet and using our technology appropriately. Again, with the caveat that we're never going to be 100% safe, but we're evolving, we're getting stronger all the time, and we're educating our students on how to make good choices as digital citizens. And that's our approach. Any questions on that?
Yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about, so a concern I've heard from a number of parents is around downtime at school, flex period, study halls, that kind of thing, that seems to be a time when kids are accessing things on their computers that they shouldn't necessarily be at school, whether it's various social media or games or whatnot. I guess I'm curious how are we addressing that?
Well, our filters are our filters. So it's not like during passing periods or during flex times our filters loosen, right? Kids can access games if they're sitting in algebra class as easily as they could access games if they're sitting in the library during a flex time, in one of our casual spaces. They shouldn't be able to do it easily at any point. We do get alerts when our students are searching for terms or accessing things that they shouldn't be. We don't see differences or discrepancies in the time of day when students are or are not doing that. Obviously idle minds are some, when students' minds are idle, they're likely to make more recreationally poor choices. We try to keep our students busy and engaged, but we depend on our filtering softwares to monitor their activity. We feel that those softwares do a good job. So I've not heard internally, nor have we seen reports that there's any point of day where we're seeing higher instances of students doing more nefarious things online, because the reality is our filters are consistent and operate the same in every square inch of this building anytime students are connected to our internet. Now, I do want to kind of pause there and say our monitoring softwares, our monitoring capabilities are limited to the devices that we provide students, so our Chromebooks and our Wi-Fi. They do not extend to this that a student has in their pocket unless the student is connected to our internet. So I don't need to speak to that anymore. I think you understand what I'm saying, but we're limited to, again, our Wi-Fi and our devices.
There was a time when cell phones were not allowed to go onto your the school internet. Is that correct? They were blocked and kids had to use their own data?
Yeah, so we have a password-protected guest internet. We're regularly changing that password. At times it becomes known to students, but that's part of our cybersecurity, is regularly changing that password and needing credential even to get onto our guest internet.
So Eric, I hear you that you're confident that the service that we use to, and you have to help me with this because this is not an area of expertise for me, but the service that we use to shut down sites or make inaccessible information in sites that shouldn't be accessible to our students. We've heard concerns that kids are accessing things that are inappropriate, that they shouldn't be able to access. And so I guess, could you talk us through what the process is when you are alerted, when you learn either through monitoring or through parent reporting or through student reporting, when you learn that kids are accessing stuff they shouldn't, what then?
We immediately contact our internet monitoring provider, or we put that on a whitelist of a blacklist on sites that cannot be accessed. So we have an internal mechanism. We can blacklist any site we want, and to say that site cannot be reached. We can do that at any point through our IT department. We can add on to the filters of our internet software provider. We can also contact our internet software provider and say, we need you to, for example, block any domain ending in .ai, which they've done. So I'll use artificial intelligence. Internet software vendors depend on large categorizations of websites, right? So there has to be the presence of a word in the address, right? Or the domain has to end in a combination of letters. So like anything ending in .ai or .io, very easy to block those domains. However, the presence of the letters AI in a web address, I can't block all of those because I used this example the other day. If I go on hairstyles.com, that may be a perfectly legitimate website, but because it had AI, it would be blocked. So we're at the mercy of what our software vendors have determined and fished out according to broad categorizations. And when we're made aware that those categorizations and those accordant filters aren't enough, We either go in and block ourselves, or we contact our vendors and let them know this slipped through your filters and we've blocked it ourselves, and please update your filters such that these are blocked.
Yeah, of course.
Eric, if I understood correctly, what you're saying is that the device, the Chromebook used in the school, is the filters are applied and it limits, hopefully, in most instances. But if the Chromebook is taken home and they're using the family internet, that those controls...
Nope. So our controls exist on our devices 100% of the time.
They go with the
100% of the time.
Okay, thank you.
And they cannot be circumnavigated unintentionally. Okay? Are there ways that someone with advanced knowledge could hack the system? And I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
But they are always loaded on the device and always present on our internet.
So can we talk a little bit about our acceptable use policy and how we enforce that? Because we've all read the policy, we know we've all voted on the policy, and I know kids sign it at the beginning of the year when they're handed their Chromebook. So can we talk about enforcement and how?
Yeah, so you said something important there, and that it's signed, right? Now, a lot of things are signed at the beginning of the year. It's form time, right? So I'm sure they're doing this, right, and they're signing off. But it very clearly lays out stipulations for how, and as you know, you approve the policy for how technology should be used and how it should not be used. And when students violate that policy, it becomes a school disciplinary issue. Then the principal is positioned. We don't have blanket disciplinary measures for how we enforce that policy because it comes down to a matter of context. Was it intentional? Was it unintentional? Was it first time, second time, third time? What's the age of the student? Do they even know what they were doing? You know, I won't do it at the microphone, but there have been some comedic stories of what little kids end up searching for on the internet not knowing what they were doing, right? And you kind of have to suss that out when you're investigating it versus a 17 or 18-year-old tends to get a little less benefit of the doubt. But our disciplinary consequences, as we tend to all matters of students making mistakes, they're learning opportunities, right? They demand a swift response, and they demand an opportunity for the student to learn. But they could rise all the way to the level of having district technology rescinded or intentionally limited. And they do. So your Chromebook will not travel with you outside of class, right? Would be kind of an extreme. Or your Chromebook needs to be chaperoned between you know, your teacher and the next teacher. Or you must leave your Chromebook in the main office. Or in extreme cases, you're not going to be issued a Chromebook at all. Those would kind of be our extremes. But again, there's other disciplinary measures depending on context, right? Suspensions, expulsions, all of those things would be obtainable, I guess, through the disciplinary pipeline, if you will. Mm-hmm. But we don't have a separate set of disciplinary procedures for violations of our acceptable use policy. And we really leave that to our school principals to adjudicate. Now, they will often consult me in those matters. Hey, if what I'm seeing is correct, right? Just like they would seek counsel from other administrators, Dr. Brennan, or sometimes even myself in other matters of discipline as well.
Eric, you mentioned Idle Minds. I'm wondering, I know you talked about flex periods and that students do have access to their devices. I'm wondering, when you talk about the younger ones, like indoor recess, do the students have access to them?
I mean, we typically, I think if our elementary principals were here, when we talk about indoor recess, it's not everyone open your Chromebook and get lost online for 20 minutes. We still do things like intentionally limit screen time for our younger students. We have talked about developing firmer guidelines within the district of what we consider to be developmentally appropriate screen time within the instructional day. And this came up around software budget, that we intentionally limit the use of even instructional software so that our students aren't looking at screens all day. I think if you would ask most of our elementary teachers, they try to utilize those Chromebooks, especially in grades K through 3, as little as possible, and they're not ever a substitute for recreation or socialization in periods where our students should have the opportunity to do that.
That's not what I'm hearing, so it may be worth some further conversation and consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important, though, that we also recognize that we use programs. I'll give you one. EPIC, where our students are allowed to sign into a program and read books and have many, many, many books at their disposal. So if during an indoor recess a student asks a teacher, can I go online and use EPIC to read during this time? The teacher may say yes, just like the teacher would say, sure, grab a paper book or use the books at your disposal online. But I think use of games is something that, number one, games are intentionally limited for access through our filtering. And we're not saying to kids, use your devices to play games in lieu of a recess. But I'll certainly investigate it. It's not something I've witnessed with my own eyes, Sarah.
Other questions about the cybersecurity piece?
I think one question I had is when we're getting notified, like how frequently are we getting notified when a search term, like a concerning search term comes up? And then, how frequently does that occur? And then, with what frequency do we take action on that?
So again, it's highly contextual, right? So I receive actually all of our alerts that our principals receive. I didn't receive any today. Monday I received 3.
But at least daily, if
Yeah,
it exists.
it's set up to do that, right?
Okay.
But you'll find, again, it's highly contextual. I've not ever received this search term, but if it's, how to build a drug lab, that would be something we would immediately respond to. Or how do I know if I'm depressed, right? So there's different ways of responding. How to build a drug lab is going to get a very different response to how do I know if I'm depressed, which we might hook that teacher up with a social worker or a clinician and just check in with that student, make sure they're okay. And then there's other things like, can you die from touching a mouse, right? Which I get an alert on because it has die, but we look at that's probably someone that maybe touched a mouse and is a little nervous, and we have the school nurse check in with that child.
Did you have that alert recently?
I did have that alert recently. I actually really connected to that because I was that kid. I touched a mouse. I thought I had rabies. Like for 3 months, I thought I had rabies.
That's really precious.
I'm only mild hypochondria in my adult years, but more acute when I was a kid. So it is really highly contextual, but the alerts do their jobs. Like they force us to consider and often act out of an abundance of caution, which is exactly what we want. We'd rather overreact than miss something or underreact.
Yeah, and I think my reasoning in asking was I just wanted to ensure we weren't getting like a weekly or a monthly report out of like this is what. But it sounds like it's more
they're in literally real time. Yeah. Like student just did this like 30 seconds ago, so we're positioned to respond immediately.
Thank you.
And that list of keywords that trigger the automated, notification.
That's industry standard.
It's industry standard language, so it's not like, I guess my question was, do you revisit that regularly based on parent reports or feedback that you're getting about stuff that kids might be accessing?
Well, anytime we get a parent report of my child was doing something on the Chromebook I wouldn't anticipate them being able to do, we immediately ask the question of how. Mm-hmm. Are our filters not set up? Why did we get an alert and miss it? Why didn't, that's very rarely answered yes. Okay. I can't ever remember not getting an alert when we should have, but it usually points to a hole in our filters that we either then manually close, reach out to our vendors to close, or both. In most cases, it's both.
Without getting too technical, can you do either or? And I had a library vendor called Gaylord, but the word gay and Gaylord prevented me from getting, I thought there was something wrong with the computer. This is several years ago.
Yeah, we whitelist sites.
But you can whitelist, but
yeah.
Can you say, block gay but not Gaylord? Is it an either or kind of thing?
I can't answer that definitively, but we have we have a lot of flexibility. It's not like we're not entirely handcuffed by our filtering software, and we have the ability to whitelist, to override it in either direction.
In either direction.
Yeah.
Well, are there other questions for Eric around this issue? I appreciate you answering all of our questions.
Sure,
thank you.
Any other questions on anything in my report tonight?
No, it's a good report.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. All right, we're going to move along to new business. The first item under new business is approval of the Middletown Stage building usage application. Charles, did you want to
Sure.
update us on this?
Yeah, so as you know, you took action 2 board meetings ago to update the rental fees and the charges, and Middletown Stage is aware of those and is still interested in renting space in the auditorium and the middle school. I gotta find the dates here. I think it's last 2 weeks, it's July 15th to July 26th.
27th?
That's 26th.
There's the 15th to the 19th, and then the 22nd to the 26th.
Yep.
It's like,
Those 2-week periods. And so I included both the building use form and I included the quotes for you. So I figured you'd be interested both in seeing, you have to take action to approve this, since this is an outside group, but this would be is this the 4th year that Middletown Stage would be.
and I'm imagining that because you're bringing this to us, that we're continuing to have a positive relationship with them and are happy to host them again at the middle school. Can I ask a quick question that about in their application they'd written down number of people in attendance was I think 70 to 75, and I think I'm imagining that's number of kids at camp, and that's clearly not the number of people that are in attendance when they're having performances. And we have something written in our policy about certain number of a crowd requires police coverage. Is that something that applies here for an event at the auditorium?
Oh,
and is that something that we
and
hold them
they're
accountable
billed
for?
separately by Portland Police. They have to retain the officers and do all this. And we don't collect that and pay that for them, but we do make sure they follow the policy, and very nice to have Bob Shea here. And but there's definitely more than 75 people that come to the plays. And
I think that's what just flagged it for me, that the number
Should that
was
be increased? Should that be changed to whatever the capacity of the auditorium is? In other words, she said 75.
because I think that's what they anticipate during the day for rehearsals, right? From 7:45 to 4, Monday to Thursday, or Monday to Friday. That's what they would anticipate. I just wanted to make sure, because it wasn't clear in the application that we treat performances separately, and there is an expectation that they follow the policy for hiring a police officer.
Yes.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Are there questions about this? If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve the Middletown Stage building usage application?
I'll make a motion to approve the Middletown Theater stage application. Middletown Stage application for use of the middle school.
Thanks, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you. Next item, item B, is to accept items for the donors choose.
So I'll be quick on this. Happened so fast. Just as a side note, like the state put out this notification that they were making some millions of dollars available for teachers to apply for. I think Eric, what was it, like 2 days, 42 hours, teachers across the state attacked this. And I only know about it. I heard about it, I got home, my wife was in front of the computer, she's a special ed teacher in Hamden, and darn it, I missed it. That literally happened that fast. But teachers are incredibly resourceful people. We know that, and our teachers here are also incredibly resourceful, and they jumped on this. You can see here I included who the teachers are and what they asked for from the state and received. Right? I think that this is a reflection of tough times, austere times, that teachers are taking advantage of this and doing this. I think that this is eye-opening for us and the state, and how quick it went, and that the needs are real, and of course that teachers spend their own money as well as district resources and need more. So in any event, you can see what the teachers have accepted there. Now this is a moment, of course, where we will be asking for forgiveness, not permission, as these items are being received in real time now. But that they're being received by the district, they are the district's. So our policy calls for board action to accept the donations. I would need you to approve that, otherwise we'll have to box everything up and send it back.
Gosh, I would not.
So are they getting the stuff or the money or both?
The stuff.
So Well, they have carpeting and chairs, all that stuff that's showing up.
FedEx trucks and UPS, and it's arriving. Yeah, I saw a printer today in the classroom, and the teacher was very excited to see it.
And headphones and glue and
glue
dry erase
and dry erase
markers
markers
and
and
whiteboards.
rugs and-
Yeah.
I saw a rug come in last week.
Nice. I'm so excited for these teachers
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Me too.
were successful. Is there a motion to accept the items from the Donors Choose grant?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, Sarah and Tim, did you want a second?
Sure.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously, thank you.
Congratulations, quick fingers, quick action.
Yep. All right, moving along. Item C is a NEASC progress update. We'll invite Kate up. Talk us through all of this, please.
We've got slides, right?
I do not have video. No, just the slides.
Do you have slides on this last one?
Yes. Good evening, board members. This evening, I am happy to be here to provide you with an update on our NEASC accreditation process. We are, that's good. I think that's good, yeah. What you have had come around to the table are hard copies that I'll be referencing this evening. All of these documents are also accessible in the information that was provided to you in your packet. So I will begin with introducing the New England Association of Schools and College accreditation process for public schools. It is a 10-year cycle intended to serve as a guide for schools, districts, centers, and programs to meet their own goals for student learning based on alignment with the research-based standards for accreditation. Secondarily, it serves as an important exercise for assessing the systems in place for ongoing self-reflection and the ability to be an effective learning organization. The key components of the process are a self-reflection completed by the school, a collaborative conference held with a small team of peer educators, the development and implementation of a school growth plan, a reflective summary report completed by the school, and a personalized decennial accreditation visit. You will see, all right, I need a few more lights on, Meg.
You will not see.
You will not see.
Let's try.
There we go.
My purpose here this evening is to provide a general overview of the work, to provide the board access to the standards, and to give you an idea of Portland High School's specific actions. So this slide reflects our process. We are scheduled for our collaborative conference visit on October 28 and 29 of 2024. We are in our self-reflection process now. This is an entirely faculty-led process. In fact, this will probably be the only time you see me presenting on this topic. The collaborative conference occurs in October. We then complete our accreditation work from October 2024 to October 2026, at which point the formal accreditation visit occurs. The next slide, you will see the members of the Steering and Self-Reflection Committee. You will also find in front of you in the packet on the top page the organizational chart that we created. It's the multicolored document at the top of your packet. One of the key principles of NEASC is that it is self-reflection by the faculty. Principal serves as facilitator and guide, but this is a teacher-led initiative. I am most grateful to our steering committee co-chairs, Rob Jones and Mike Kenny, who have embraced the process and the new learning. Mr. Jones is currently on a NEASC visit today, and Mr. Kenny will be attending one for a neighboring school in April. Additional members of our steering committee have also attended visits.
A subset of that is the self-reflection. That's really the first part that we're working on now. That committee is being led by Michelle Stotler, and we have members across each of the standards that are helping to write that narrative. Are there any questions about the organizational chart or the committee membership that I can answer at this time? Tim?
Just what's the significance of the two blue heads?
Those are paid stipended positions.
Okay.
So the steering committee co-chairs will have a stipend each of the 3 years through the accreditation through 2026. The self-reflection committee will disband at the end of this year as that report will be done and submitted.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any significance to the people in the committees that are
Just that we have people on each committee.
conjoined? Okay.
No. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
They're holding hands.
They're holding hands. They work together.
Working
Yeah.
closely. Got it.
It's
It's all
collaborative.
about collaboration.
The next slide talks about the 5 standards that NEASC asks us to look at. These are the standards for learning, and each one is, in and of itself, an umbrella for many foundational elements and many supporting principles. So you will see the 5 standards there, and on page 2 of the packet that I gave you, you will see the foundational elements that support each standard. This is really the meat and potatoes of the work that we have to determine as a faculty. Do we already meet these standards, or do we not meet them? And if not, what do we do to make sure that we move forward? As the faculty completes the self-reflection process, they will make these determinations, and then they will identify for the committee what we believe to be our priority areas for growth. When the committee comes to visit, they will either say, yep, those are your priority areas, or hey, you might have missed this part, what do you think about this? So that's the evaluative piece that the committee does in the collaboration conference. Next slide, Dylan. Page, sorry. So how does this work? It is the task of the teachers to examine all evidence that's available to them. That may be statistical, that may be data, that may be anecdotal. It also includes survey data. Earlier in the fall, we surveyed our teachers, our students, and our families, and it is a NEASC standardized survey, one that I actually really like, and I think it provides a very comprehensive look at the high school, and certainly could be applied in other areas. If you look at the last page on your packet, you're going to see a sample. The nice thing about the way this data is aggregated is that it is by principle. So that a teacher is working on, and I used principle 2.8, learners have multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning, receive corrective feedback, and use this feedback in meaningful ways to support their learning. This is a family survey, and we asked, teachers allow my child to revise assignments and improve his or her grades. And you can see how it breaks out. Totally true, mostly true, neither true, mostly untrue, and totally true. So questions like that are peppered throughout the surveys, and they are linked to principles, so that when teachers are evaluating those principles, they have that stakeholder feedback data. The other thing that we will look at as a self-reflection committee is we will look at school and district policies and procedures, such as the acceptable use. We will look at budget documents, we will look at the curriculum platform, and most importantly, student work. And the analysis of student work under Standard 2 is a key element of the work of the committee. We determine our proficiency level. As I referenced before, we identify our areas for growth. The faculty will then ratify the findings by standard as a full faculty, looking for a 2/3 majority of support. And we will submit this report to the commission prior to the end of the 2023-2024 school year for review and in preparation for our visit in October. This could easily be a 3-day seminar on NEASC. What questions do you have or topics would you like to learn more about that I can prepare and come back to you?
Kate, I had asked earlier how the board would be involved in this process, and you said probably not at all, that the old model was the board was very involved. But I do know that policy chair, and because policy does play an important part in what we say we do and what we do, I would hope that that would come back to the board to look at policies and to make sure we're updated and we've included all that should be included.
Absolutely. I will have the opportunity, or the co-chairs of the steering committee, to update the board not only on what the faculty has identified as our areas of growth, but what the committee has verified and what we'll be working on. And there will certainly be implications for the board, because that's a key element in NEASC, is does the school and does the community provide the necessary resources for learning to be effective. So the board actually does have a very strong and powerful role in the actualizing of the NEASC report. And so you will certainly be hearing more.
Thank you.
And you may have just answered this, but the surveys from faculty, families, and students were great. There's so much information in there. So should we sort of pause on anything related to that until we hear more from faculty that come?
Yeah, so the survey is data that the faculty looked at to create their narratives based on those principles. I was so pleased with the results of those surveys. They are generally quite positive. If I had an area of concern, it would be moving that middle band of sort of the I don't knows to the either I know or I don't know, because that's telling when someone doesn't know something that I think they should know. But I also think what's important that made me very happy was we had over a 33% parent response rate, which is a wonderful survey response rate for any survey and excellent for high school level. So I was very happy. The kids, we had a 98% because I did it in Mentor. So they were a captive audience. But to get that kind of parent support in survey, yeah. One of the things that I will be discussing with Dr. Britton and with Mr. Martin, NEASC provides that survey free of charge annually. I actually really like it for the high school, and it will be a nice survey. It's an overwhelming amount of data, but it's a nice survey because it really targets the work of a high school.
Yeah, excellent.
So timeline-wise, as you move through the self-reflection process, and you said that the document or the findings that the faculty will pass on, that they're obligated to pass on by the end of this school year. In terms of sharing that information with the board, or when you want to next kind of report back to the board on where you're at in the process, what are you imagining?
I would likely be able to ask Mr. Kenny, Mrs. Statler, and Mr. Jones to give a summary of the self-reflection at a June board meeting. I would also offer to have myself or one of the staff members participate in a work session over the summer, maybe as part of a board retreat, to sort of dig deeper.
That's a good idea.
Because it's a lot.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay, real question. Just comment briefly on, I know you and I share the same opinion about this, the value of this.
Oh, second to none. Second to none. You will hear oftentimes, and especially in high school circles, people sort of, when you say NEASC, you get this sort of like, oh, that's so much work. And I will say the commission has done a tremendously good job of streamlining that work and allowing you to focus on priority areas for your school. That didn't used to be the case. You used to have to go through every standard, including like the facilities standard, even if you just opened a brand new high school. So it was a lot of work for sometimes things that didn't need to happen. They've really streamlined it. There is nothing in NEASC that isn't really good for kids in teaching and learning. And I have yet to have a teacher come back from participating on a visiting committee that hasn't said it was the best professional learning of their career.
I agree with you. I mean, I see the process as unifying. It gets everybody on the same page. It articulates a good vision. And I love the changes, whereas I think the old NEASC had a sort of gotcha feel to it.
Right.
I think the adjustments they've made have really focused on reflection and improvement, and not, hey, you're going to lose accreditation if you don't comply.
It's a growth model.
It's a growth model, yeah.
Other questions for Kate?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, item D are the high school course adjustments that Eric was kind of to talk us through in his report. I think we'll just take them one at a time. Yeah, so the first one is the English 12 course adjustment from a full year course to a one semester course. Is there a motion to approve the English 12 course adjustment?
I'll make a motion to approve the adjustment.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. Is there discussion? Questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you. Item 2 is the Mystery and Mayhem ELA elective. Kind of goes hand in hand with the adjustment to the English 12 course.
Move to accept the Mystery and Mayhem ELA elective.
Thanks, Mike. Seconded by Tim. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Looks like a fun elective.
It sure does. It sure does. All right, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 3 is the Contemporary Issues through Multimedia course in the Social Studies Department. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to accept the Contemporary Issues through Multimedia course.
Thanks, Meg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Stacy. Any further discussion? Nope. I think this one sounds like fun too. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. That's unanimous support. And item 4 is the Essentials of Math Pathway, inclusive of 3 new courses: Algebra 1 Essentials, Geometry Essentials, and Algebra 2 Essentials. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I heard Tim made the motion, seconded by Meg. Any further discussion?
I think my concern remains of segregating students who receive student services and particularly have identified probably disabilities related to their IEPs. So I don't distrust that there's a feeling that there's a need for this, but I have concerns about it.
Any other comments, questions? Nope. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Sarah. Any, motion passes. There we go. All right. Educator Diversity Plan. This was a first read. So I'm not going to ask us to take any action on this tonight. Eric talked us through it. Are there any further questions or thoughts?
Larger font.
We got to rotate that page.
Yeah. Hold it closer.
I gotta get my.
We need a large magnifying glass for that one.
I didn't like it. Control plus will be your friend.
Yeah. All right, so we'll plan to revisit that at our March 19th meeting. Is that right? All right, and if folks have questions, comments, concerns between now and then, if you could, shoot an email. You can actually email the whole board. That's fine. All right, well, we don't have any old business this evening, so we're going to move on to committee reports. First up is curriculum, and we had a great meeting a couple weeks ago, and you heard all about it at length tonight, so we'll just move along. We meet again in a couple weeks. Policy.
We have a meeting on the 13th, and clearly we're going to be busy again. So we'll catch up.
Yeah. All right, personnel. We did meet. We discussed possible one-year contract extensions with 3 of our bargaining units. We discussed that with Rebecca in order to avoid having to negotiate 6 contracts again in 1 year, which was a lot. So we're working with Rebecca on that, and she was also kind enough to review the Director of Student Services job description with us and agreed to review and update some language that needed updating. So it's a good meeting. Buildings and grounds.
There is no meeting scheduled, and I don't know that we need one right now. I think we're
Good, yeah.
in good shape.
Crack liaison.
Meeting is on I was just going to look, it's the 21st, I believe.
Dave, do you want to update on the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah, they had a lot of different topics come up. I'll just highlight a few of them. As they talked about the wells over on our property there, very positive. The water quality is very high, so it's looking very positive, although initial estimates are $1 to $2 million to drill a well, plus associated other equipment we'll need, so there's gonna be a price involved. More to come on that. They touched base on the Route 9, where they wanna do the traffic, take the traffic lights out, so I didn't attend that meeting. I'd like to have, but I couldn't have, but I mean, it's a concern for us as far as traffic going to and from Portland. They're going for a grant to do some more of the master plan for downtown and the quarries. A lot of exciting things happen down there with the Brainerd Place and down at the quarries. There could be some exciting things happening there. I know tomorrow night, the gentleman that's spearheading the Brainerd Place is coming to the Board of Selectmen meeting with a presentation. I'm going to go there tomorrow night. A lot of exciting things happening there, all very positive, I'm hearing. So, a lot of great things happening. And lastly, they swore in a couple of new officers. Just bringing it up there because I don't know if they have introductions at school and things like that, but we got a couple of new officers in town.
Great.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Dave. Youth Services Advisory Board.
Oh, they met today. They had a special meeting that I didn't find out about until late last week. I wasn't able to go, but they did meet and talk about, I guess it was because they're talking about the Easter events that they're coordinating, and that was held. The next meeting's on the 19th.
Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
And we met, Eric provided an update from the meeting February 12th, and so I believe we'll meet again in April. And Dr. Scott Nickel is a parent of Portland Public School students and also the superintendent in Ellington. So he came in to talk about a couple initiatives that they've started, Ellington Unplugged and Seeds of Civility, and those could be models for things that we might try implementing in our schools and potentially in our town. So I guess more to come on that. And it was a fruitful conversation.
Those are both really lovely documents. I was really glad you linked them in your report, Eric. You didn't get to say that. It was nice to, I enjoyed reading through them. Thank you. Land and Building Usage Committee. Dave, I hope it's okay. Added this to our agenda and figured moving forward it would just be good to make sure we're getting a report back from that.
I was going to mention that my Board of Education comments is that our first meeting has come up on the 18th of March. We have a great group of people out of the gate. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going to talk about maybe meeting more frequently early on, just so if we have things we need to get accomplished. One thing I was going to ask everyone, because we're only a group of 7 or 8, 10 people, that if people have ideas, don't hesitate to send me or the chairperson, I think her name is Kristen, an email, because my goal, I think, is we're going to put a whiteboard down and start putting all these ideas down and start vetting some of these ideas and going through them and see what's feasible, what's not feasible, because we're not going to have a solid solution, but we want to have some things that are very, very much, feasible when we get to this point of sharing with the community, saying, hey, this could be this, or this could be that, or it could go this way, type of thing. So, again, more help is needed as far as ideas.
It seemed like a really good first meeting, and there was a lot of energy and excitement, which was nice to see in that room, that there were so many folks who were.
Yeah, it was great.
And you're touring Gildersleeve Saturday.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Thanks.
Yeah.
We mentioned touring the school.
Yeah, good, great. All right, audience of citizens. Do we have anyone with us in person or online who wishes to address the board at this point? No? Okay. All right. We'll move on to Board of Education member comments. Why don't we start over on this side? Tim, do you want to kick it off?
No, I don't have any comments.
Stacy?
You gonna miss me?
Yes, I am. I could take my time.
No, I just really want to, just thank everyone in the town of Portland for, being elected to serve on this board, and just very, just so positive, this group, and just really being part of this collaborative group. It's just been amazing experience. If my work life wasn't as challenging as it is right now, I would be here, continuing. And I just want to say that I will be the biggest cheerleader in the community. As you all know, I have two children, my husband and I, that, we raised through these Portland schools, and they are successful citizens and professionals, and soon to be, one soon to be, if she gets herself through grad school. So I can't say enough about this town, but truly about this group, and I thank you. I kind of put myself out of my comfort zone, going through the election process, and I appreciate each of you and how you all work together, whether we always agree or not. Everyone is so respectful of one another, and it's just, I was so excited to hear about the Kid Governor program at Biz, because it's just something I never really thought I would do, so I just really want to thank all of you.
Well, I'll say that I'm going to miss you, Stacey. And also, just appreciation to Roman, if you're still there, tuning in, listening, to having the courage to come and share your speech with us, and for participating in that way. It was a joy to have you here.
Kim?
I want to say I will miss you, Stacey. It's been great having you. Wish you all the best. I enjoyed the Kid Governor speeches tonight. I also enjoyed reading at Bellevue yesterday for Read Across America, so that was a great event. I do want to be just kind of clear, transparent, and kind of bring up a not so positive topic, I guess, that reading Ryan Curley's letter regarding consensus, and I just want to be clear regarding consensus. We didn't take a vote. I don't think the Board of Selectmen took a vote, and I am strongly opposed to one large school. Charles and I had a great conversation last week regarding my specific concerns that goes beyond just working myself in a big school. I think I have a lot of valid concerns that I'm hopeful we will get some clarification on things, and I hope 5-10 years from now this isn't something the town regrets doing, and that this is the direction that's best for the town.
Thanks, Kim.
Again, thank you, Stacey, for all you've done. It's been great working with you as well, so appreciate it. And just to piggyback on your comment, I totally get where you're coming from, but we also got to realize that we're not going to please everyone. We need to kind of make a decision and put the minds of everybody together and say, yeah, it's a plan, and we're gonna make it work. And we could remodel 3 old schools, and then we incur $10 more million worth of expenses that we didn't expect. We say, geez, why didn't we build that new school when we had the opportunity? So there's all kinds of choices and options. So I understand, and unfortunately, that's what we're gonna just have to do as a group, make a group decision and move forward.
A couple of things. Thank you, Roman, for the brave stand that you took, and I fully support your governorship. I hope that we can welcome you back as the new governor and Kid Governor in Connecticut. And mental health is certainly front and center in my life and in my family with the challenges that we've had. On that happy note, March 7th is the 7 to 12 art show at the library from 4 to 6, so everybody should go and see that. Also, we did Read Across America. I think there were several of us at the school on last Thursday, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, for Friday, that was a lot of fun reading to the various grades. And also Jessica Bruin's got a great recipe for quiche, which is always the highlight of her breakfast in the morning. So thank you to Valley View for hosting that. CABE update, March 13th is a day on a hill. It's a day for board members to come together and advocate for our school districts. It starts at 8:30 in the morning at the Bushnell, and it will entail going over the LOB and meeting with our local legislators and having conversations. There's a lot of challenges this year, and it's a short session, but the legislature is determined to make another headway with legislation and taking funding away from public schools that was promised in the second year of the governor's budget, $150 million. So I think we all need to be advocates and stand up and speak up and let them know that board members, which are the largest elected body of people in the state of Connecticut, there has to be 10,000 of us. If there's 150 school districts and 7 to 10 people sit on a board, we have a voice and we need to use it and be a partner with the legislature and the Department of Education, and really see what we can do to quell this storm that we've had lately. So that's all I have to say. And thank you, Stacy. You're going to be missed. You were a wonderful addition to the board, and your insight and your wisdom and your good humor will be missed. So thank you.
You mentioned the day on the Hill, and I just wanted to let our student representatives know that if you have an interest in advocacy or in learning more about our state legislature and how they operate and what CABE is doing, you are invited. They invite students to participate. If that's something you're curious about, and I saw that you'd emailed Charles about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it would take to get two of our student reps.
But if you're curious, let us know, because CABE loves having students attend.
Love to have you come.
What date did you say it was?
It's the 13th of March, which is next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, 8:45.
It's early. We have to leave early in the morning to get there, but yeah, it would be great. So let us know if you're interested, or other students who are on the Senate or student body or whatever that might.
I also wanted to mention quickly that CABE sent out an email, I think it was last week. You know, they send out their, like once a month or something, CABE in the news, highlighting, you know, if they've had CABE staff members or whoever who's been featured in articles. And there was an article they sent out from the New Haven Register last week about cell phone use in public schools. And Jody talked about how he's going to be considering policy updates to their recommended policies on cell phone use. And I just thought that was I wanted to mention it in case anyone, I can email it to you if you didn't get the email. But it's kind of timely for us as our policy committee is getting ready to meet with Kate and Chuck to talk about cell phone use at the high school and middle school, and kind of consider whether our policies are meeting our needs right now or whether they require updates. So I was happy to hear that Kate is having those same conversations in their policy department right now. They also put out a call for workshop proposals for the 2024 CABE CAPS convention. And so I just wanted to throw it out there that if we have staff members or administrators or teachers who can think of amazing things that we're doing that they'd like to share with peers across the state, that could be a cool opportunity. We had 2 of our library staff members present 2 years ago, and they did a phenomenal job.
They were right on the cusp of the book banning issues, talking about that, and just broadly talking about libraries, how important they are to schools in general. And they're usually the first place that budget cuts come. We cut the books, we cut the videos, we cut the resources, and we cut the staff. And so they were making that appeal to superintendents and board members not to do that.
And so talking about what good policy looks like to manage book complaints. Material complaints. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that the proposals are due at some point in April, so you've got a little time, but it might be worth putting out to our staff and see what ideas they have. I think that was it for business. Stacy, we are all going to miss you, and thank you for your service to the board and to our schools and to our community. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you, and we're sure are going to miss you. So, on that note, if there's no further anything, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, Meg. Is there a second? Thank you, Dave. All in favor? Aye. Everybody have a good evening. Yeah, stay dry.
Reflect back on